Okay, welcome everybody to today's English School Alumni podcast. Today I am delighted to be joined by Constandinos Tsindas. Did I pronounce your second name properly?
It's Tsindas, but it's fine.
Okay,
It's just
okay.
no worries at all.
Apologies for my
No
accent.
worries. Absolutely no problem.
Okay, so and class of 1991.
Class of 91, yes.
91, and you are an international journalist for PIK CYBC?
Yeah, for CYBC, Public Service Broadcaster of Cyprus.
Okay.
The past 25 years.
Nice. And also translator and moderator?
Yes. I do that as part of my duties at the CYBC, but also as a freelancer. Okay. It was a kind of thing I developed over the years as a journalist. Journalism helped me a lot with developing that, and both with translation and interpretation, because journalism is an international profession. So you go around everywhere, and that developed over the years.
Yeah. So in my research for today's conversation,
Okay.
Other than your very basic LinkedIn profile and your Instagram profile, I could not find anything else about you online. Now, I've spent about an hour and a half with you prior to this podcast, and what I saw was somebody with incredibly honed communication skills.
Thank you.
Somebody who has a wealth of interesting experiences, a storyteller. And when I left you, I found myself hoping that I would be invited as a dinner guest for a dinner party hosted by you.
Okay.
So I then had to ask myself, is this the life of a professional journalist when everybody has a platform now?
Yeah.
Is this the life? You were always the storyteller, but never the story.
Yeah, I mean, this is key in this job. This is why I stayed in this profession over the years, over a long time, because if you make the mistake of becoming the story, then you actually go out of your goal. You go out of the reason why you become a journalist. Storytelling is actually the excitement of going into it, of developing it, of building it, and then giving it to your audience, whoever they may be. If you're part of the story, they're not really interested in you. And half the excitement is building towards telling the story.
Right.
Like we were discussing before, I was in the Netherlands and doing a story about the CYBC, the relations between Holland and Cyprus, and the king coming to Cyprus and whatever. And half of my excitement was actually thinking of how all these interviews and all these images and all these pictures I had in my head and all things that people told me actually came together into a story.
Right.
This is the most exciting thing you can do in this profession. If you become the story, then you're not actually providing any sort of real information. But because the thing is, if you're doing the story, you don't have to overplay that, because you're already the storyteller.
Yeah.
And being the storyteller, I mean, that's how I think journalism started in the Middle Ages with the bards, reciting poetry and prose. These were the people that actually related the news and about kings' deaths and battles. All these things came down to us from prose and from people actually going around cities and performing. And they were the storytellers, and they were very important. The storytellers never died in battles because they had to write the history. And
of course.
That's a good advantage to have. You don't get killed because you're the king's writer. So
very strategic position to put yourself in.
So you always position yourself in that, and it's enough to be the storyteller. You are the center of attention in any case. So why make it about yourself? I mean, if you do that, then people, I think, are put off now because they want to see the story. They want to see what it is. With television, obviously, it's a different kind of story because television is the most popular medium. It was created for everyone, not just people because 50, 60, 70 years ago, even in Cyprus, not many people could read. I mean, in the 20s and 30s, people who could read were teachers and priests. And that's why they had the papers came out, and then the magazines and radio. And radio was an innovation when it came out. And afterwards, television was for everyone. So being the storyteller and actually relating all this to everyone is enough. If you make the mistake of pretending to be someone else or immersing yourself in the story, then you lose the audience. I mean, you're immersed in any case.
Yeah. So you're in the background. Yeah.
So why go overboard? People are listening anyway. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, you're right, because you think back at history and stories, and the skill of the communicator. And there's I'm trying to think of the name of the book, but two different ways where the communication goes to one village, and this guy's a natural storyteller, and how that spreads, and how this person doesn't have the confidence to do it. So there are certain characteristics and personality types that would be good at this.
Yeah, this is how information was related in any case. I mean, what we said about the Middle Ages, this is how people found out about things. There wasn't television, there wasn't anyone to go around presenting the news or papers or anything. We started in the Middle Ages with the printing press when they started writing, but before it was all about going around, relating the news to everyone, and it spread from village to village and community with community. The center was the capital city with the castles and everything. I mean, if you actually study that period, you will see the beginnings of relating information. Obviously, there was a lot of misinformation back then. I was
going to say, it goes the other way as well, doesn't it? Right?
And it was obviously the elite class of the royals that had the advantages and had all the privileges of that life. But everything that people needed to know was relayed down in that sort of manner. And whatever happened, the bards and the writers, and that's what Shakespeare did as well, I think. That was part of the fantastic nature of his work. He related everything about that period. So I'm guessing this is the most exciting part of the profession. If you don't like doing that, or if you don't have the patience to do that, because that's a long process. I mean, I spent 5 days in Holland, and when I came back, I had 6 hours of video. You have to go all through that video, preview it, read all through the material, write down your quotes, translate, put it into context, write a script, find information, research information about Holland, be accurate with your sound bites. And it's a long process. It doesn't just, you click and the report happens. It took me about 30 hours to write 3-4 stories.
Wow.
Because you go through all that material. You go through your stand-ups, you go through all your images, you find images. I found images of seagulls, like 1 second there, 3 seconds there, and you build all that, and then that's the beauty of it. I mean, it all clicks together.
Yeah.
If you're looking for that. And it was sort of a traveling piece as well, beyond everything else, for people to find out more, to see images of the Netherlands. I mean, they only know about Amsterdam. Most people only know about Amsterdam. Well, a bit about The Hague as well.
Yeah.
But this is what you kind of want to relay. But there's a process. If you want to skip that process, don't become a journalist. Do something else.
Because, so there's a lot more involved in it than just writing the story.
You have to do all that. You have to go through all that process. And then sit down and do the editing together with the professional. I mean, it's all teamwork. I mean, the cameraman. He's so important in that process. I mean, the visual aspect of everything. If he didn't give me good images, I wouldn't be able to write simply anything.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, there wouldn't be a good story. But because we worked together, he was able to, put into vision what I was thinking and what I was getting as sound bites and everything. And it all worked together. I mean, I think that's the most amazing part of television.
Yeah.
That's why it has so much strength.
Yeah.
Because it's the power of the image. I mean, you cannot change that. Whatever you do, not AI can change that. Not anyone can change that.
I mean, and I suppose if you have a cameraman who thinks along the same lines as you, because he's trying to tell a story through images, isn't he? You're doing it through words and then using the images and the words. So you've got to be on a similar track to your cameraman. And I guess you would know if you weren't. Yeah, because then
you would.
It's just not
and
coming across.
And then you would have a problem. Or you'd have to compromise with certain things and try and work through them. I mean, there's always a way through. But if you find a visual editor or a cameraman who's into that, I mean, this is technique of television. I mean, I don't want to go into that deep analysis of it, but that's the idea. I mean, and if you see that someone is looking for things on their own, they're part of the story too.
Yeah,
they're the
yeah.
storyteller as well.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why you have to give credit. I mean, this is half the work. Half the work is putting it all together.
Of course.
And that's what I really enjoyed about going abroad and doing things.
Yeah.
It's not always easy because you're on your own. Sometimes you don't speak the language. We did that in the US. We did that in France and whatever. I mean, it's more difficult when you have to communicate with people you're not used to. It's beyond your comfort zone, but that's the
challenge
job.
of it all. Yeah,
exactly.
So I have, again, until you come across having these kind of conversations or podcasts, you don't really think too deeply about it. So there are several different types of journalism, and the one that came to my mind immediately was investigative journalism, and then of course you've got sports journalism, tourist journalism. Is there categories? Do you? How does that work? Or how many categories are there?
There's so many things, different things you can do. If you're a sportscaster, you can be a sportscaster, investigative journalist. You can specialize in social issues, international desk. You can be a reporter that goes around covering all sorts of stories. You can do health. You can do education. You can do politics. You can be political editor. That's the very fancy words of covering politicians' lives and the Cyprus issue in the case of Cyprus. But I think it's more about what you want to do. I mean, you have to be able to cover everything. If you want to be an all-round journalist, it's good to specialize. I mean, I specialized from the beginning, but you have to know how to deal with different cases. And if you're abroad, then it's more about that. But I'm guessing we don't do that much of investigative journalism anymore, apart from a few cases. In Cyprus. I mean, it does happen. I mean, television provides you with the opportunity to do that more. And now things have become a little bit more transparent because you can actually call up people and call them out and ask them. While as before, I mean, 20, 30 years ago, that was
things were hidden and you couldn't.
I mean, there are still. It's a small country, you know. You can't lie. I mean, there are, interventions here and there, and I'll write this way and write that. But you have to be free, and you have to be rid of those things. Politicians are always politicians. They will always try and push their own agenda. Everybody's interested about their own thing, but your duty, in inverted commas, I mean, of this profession, your work is to be objective, present all sides, and do not immerse yourself into any kind of story. Let everyone else decide for themselves. Do not take that from them. But build the story in the right way. It's difficult to do that in a smaller country, I guess. Okay. But it can be done if it's done in a certain way, in a certain language. It's possible. I mean, people are more educated now. It's not like it was in the past where people believed you, whatever you said.
Whatever, absolutely.
I mean, these things, in democratic societies, these things, I'm guessing, are gone. Not so much in many, many other countries, Asia and Africa, where things are still quite tough when it comes to television legislation and freedom of speech. Oh, that was a big one.
That was the end of your freedom of speech, clearly.
Somebody wanted me to stop there.
Maybe you did.
Yeah, whatever.
I'm going to come back to the bias because I'm really curious as to how you do not insert your opinion into a piece. But let's come back to that in a minute. So, let's go to your sort of early beginnings and your career path. Your time at the English school.
Yeah.
How briefly describe that to me? Was it fun? Was it difficult? Did you enjoy yourself? How do you feel about it now?
I mean, I'll tell you a story about that. My dad was also in private education when he was growing up in the 40s. He was in the 30s, mid 30s. So there was private school in his village, Mid-Sea School, which was then a private school. So he always believed in the value of something that goes beyond education, and that provides you with something else as well. So having finished that, um, he saw that I was more inclined towards social sciences and humanities and foreign languages. So he saw that as an opportunity. So he told me, "Oh, you're gonna sit on an exam for the English school." I said, "Fine, okay." For me, it was a challenge because I started learning English when I was in the fourth grade, which was about maybe 8 years old,
Okay.
which is around the time when most people in Cyprus start learning English because you have to learn. You start at fourth or fifth grade, and then you move on to high school.
Yeah.
And he said, "Okay, fine, I'll give it a shot." So I sat for the exams, and then he came along with me when the names were on the
Oh, really? So they
when
put them
being
up on the
announced. They put them
board.
up on the board.
Ooh.
So we went in. It was different back then. Now the entrance was not an office back then.
Right.
It was open. So you go in, and the names were there. And my dad was looking through, and he said, "So through this, you're not there. You failed. Let's go." I said, "Hang on a minute. That's my name over there. You're wrong. I passed." So that was the
Wow.
beginning of. He kind of insisted that I do that because when I was from a very early age, I decided I love to read and write, read literature and go into all that world of literature and reading. That was amazing for me. It was early. My mom also had that because
Yeah.
she went to primary school, and then her dad wouldn't let her go through to high school
Really?
because it was a different time. She was born
Yeah.
in 1940, and in the 50s, people had to work
Mm-mm.
in the fields, in the orchards. So he told her, no more school for you,
Wow.
even though the teacher was insistent that
Mm.
she could go and that he would pay for it, and he still wouldn't let her.
Wow.
So she had all this thing as well about learning and reading, and I mean, my dad, when it was my birthday, he gave me £10 back then. I mean, in the 80s, it was a lot of money.
Yeah.
It was a fair amount of money. So he told me, just go and buy books. So my contact started with Jules Verne. So I have all his books, and that sort of put me into this mode of writing myself and wanting to follow that down that path.
Yeah.
And the school was a perfect setting for that. Okay, doing the classes in English, that was also a challenge for me. I was ready for it because by then I had studied 3 years of English, so I was okay. But still, I mean, all the rest of my friends went to high school, to
Right.
Greek high school.
Greek high school.
So for me, it was different. Back then, the school was also different, not in its setup, but society's changed in the classes that went to the English school. It was considered an expensive school, so to speak, in inverted commas, because all private schools had tuition. So you had to, parents had to sacrifice something.
Regardless.
So my dad, my other brothers and sisters did not go to the English school. So they would always tease me about it.
I was going to say, I can imagine dinner time.
You're the English school one, and he sent you to the English school, and he's paying for you. And I said, okay, fine. But my dad realized that, if you have an inclination towards something, and he could see further down the road. I think that's rare for parents now.
Yeah.
They don't really see much further down. I mean, he saw that I was eager to do that.
Yeah.
So he sent me to school that he believed would give me that kind of opportunity. And I think that's what put me there in the first place.
Yeah.
And as I went along, I found that I was being immersed into that kind of society. It's a society. English schools is a society. Now we tease each other. English school graduates teach each other, and they say, "Oh, when I see an English school graduate, I can recognize them."
Yes.
I always do. 9 out of 10 cases, I get it right.
Wow.
Because it's not just about when I started, even from Form 1, I could see that it gave you something different than education.
Right.
It was something beyond that, as we said before. It kind of let you go through the school. I mean, it just immersed you into it, and you were drawn to it like, I don't know, magic. I think it was just kind of the system. and you weren't thinking about anything else. You liked going to school, and it was part of a whole social network. And now, even now, people who are in high positions in government or very successful in their jobs are all English school graduates. I think that's not accidental. I think that's part of the confidence. And I wasn't very confident as a young man. I wasn't. And the school kind of gave me a purpose.
Yeah.
It said, okay, you have your English, you have your literature, you have your work, and kind of gave me impetus to work even more. And as I went along, I said, yeah, this is possible. And it kind of gave me the confidence as well to move on to something different. And it allowed us to grow. I mean, that's what the school did.
Yeah.
It also went through a curriculum, but yeah.
Yeah. I'm also sort of imagining you being there at the school and just kind of absorbing through every pore the culture, the history, the confidence that it gave you purely. I mean, even the building itself.
Yes, it was.
Enables that, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Even you walk in and you just like, and especially if you're a part of that culture.
Yeah.
And you can imagine your
That's
shoulders
true.
go back, your back goes higher, and you're
Yeah.
like, so that becomes you.
Yeah, and back then, I mean, there wasn't those new buildings that I've seen
at the back,
I visited recently. So it was just the old ones, the early 20th century ones. It was, for me, it was okay.
Incredible, aren't they?
This is something different for me. And it kind of gave me that confidence. And you could see that. I mean, my nephew also studied at the English school, and he finished the class of 2017. Well, he's in Germany now.
Okay.
He's working there, and he finished school. He was just, okay, I'm going to do this, this, and this. He had no asking parents, no discussion.
Just empowered to go on.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
This is the thing. This is the difference. I think this is an example. I don't know if it's changed now in public education. I mean, I will be the last person to slag off public education, but I don't know. I think that needs to change a little bit. I think they should take an example from that. Okay, now it's different in education. They provide more initiatives. There's more out-of-class activities in public schools. The kids are different, but they need more triggers. They need more good triggers, more critical thinking, and the results are low. It's not just about the results, but it's the way you provide incentives. And they're a little bit disillusioned about what to do next. I mean, I talk to many kids of that age, my nephews and everything, and I have a lower age, and they're not sure about what to do, and they're not sure about what advice they should get. I mean, I didn't have, even back then, when there wasn't any proper advisory person, sort of thing, to tell me what to follow next. It was back in the 80s. It was in the early stages in Cyprus. So, but the teachers, I mean, I remember one of the teachers, all my teachers, telling me, "You're definitely going to be a journalist." I mean, 100%.
Really?
He told me that.
How old were you then?
I was 13.
Right.
I was third form.
Do you think you became a journalist because that teacher saw it in you, or do you think it's half-half?
I think it's about half-half. Okay. I mean, I definitely thought I was going to do something involved writing.
Right.
I didn't know it was going to be journalism. I wanted to do literature at first, and something more connected to academia.
Okay.
And my dad, it was a funny story with my dad. He told me, I said, I want to do journalism. Why? Do you want to be a poet or something? I mean, he was old school. I mean, he wanted jobs to be useful. No, useful. I mean, in inverted, you know what I mean. Productive.
Yeah.
And this is the old idea.
Yeah.
But he discussed it with me, and then I kind of switched to sociology because it's a massive field that has history, has literature, it has everything I wanted it to have. So then I went into journalism gradually. But there's some funny stories about how I went to the school, and then what I realized going through school as well was that it was very inclusive in its own way, and that I thought was ahead of its time.
Okay.
Because Cyprus back then was quite prejudicial about a lot of groups of people. I mean, we should say that. I mean, we should not be afraid to say that. There was prejudice about many kinds of people, and there was a lot of prejudice about AIDS, about gays, about disabled people, about women, animals. I mean, some of these things haven't changed since then, but it's gone through a lot of stages. It's improved markedly, but back then it was inclusive. I felt included. To me, it was amazing because as a young man at that time, there were a lot more issues that we faced. I mean, the whole of that generation. We were growing up immediately after the 1974 war. I mean, I was 1 year old, and we were the children immediately before the war. So we kind of grew up when Cyprus was developing in the 80s, but it was so fast. We had to make so many fast decisions. Cyprus was doing better financially, but it's all this development and all this growth, and we had to go through it, and it was so fast, and we had to make difficult and fast decisions.
And also the trauma that your parents would have been
Yes,
through.
exactly.
You've got that built in, their fear, you know, in a household, not just you guys growing up in society, and that trauma does pass down, doesn't it? And I can imagine it was a very traumatic time.
Yeah, I mean, my parents were living in an area that is now occupied because their work was there, so they were going to buy a house. So their lives were disrupted. They had to leave and then move back to Nicosia and start all over. That affected our lives too. They were able to rebuild, but that also played a part in my father's decision, because he always told me, if you have education, real education, you have a weapon. It's a real weapon. And I think that's what I valued most about what he told me, that he realized how much that can give you. And I mean, the school, in the way that it developed a lot of people, not just in education, but also in their confidence to do things, opened a lot of doors for me. I mean, later. And I realized as the doors were opened that there was a reason for that. And because when I told people for jobs or for anything that I was an English school graduate, immediately I could see that, okay, if he's a graduate, okay, there's something there. There's something more not that it played a part in what I did later. I mean, in the jobs I had, in the opportunities that it gave me. And back then it was a different time, of course. I mean, in the 80s.
Of course. So, I mean, going to your career now, what was your big break in the industry? What? Tell me about what happened. I mean, you had a master's degree from University of London, and then so where was your big break to you go? Okay, I'm here.
I mean, when I came. When I returned from London, I did an interview for one of the early private stations. So I came and I said, okay, I have this degree, I have all this education, I'm English. So okay, we'll give you £200. Is that it? I thought, why I'm in this profession? Maybe I should go away. And then about a year and a half later, when I started going into the job, slowly going into it, and it was difficult because I immediately went straight into television. I did not go through newspapers, writing, or whatever. It was straight into that mode. It's faster. I mean, and it was the early private television of Cyprus, so it was kind of an experiment as well. So the war in Yugoslavia broke out. So my chief editor said, okay, you're taking this over. You're doing it. You're doing the whole thing. No one else is going to be involved with it. You're just going to do the war. Okay, I didn't go to Yugoslavia, but you're covering the whole thing. You're like going on air and doing stories. And I immersed myself so much into that I immediately, my voice and my face became associated with that kind of reporting. With war reporting and international news. And I was the go person for that. And that was very early in my profession. And I remember going through all we had tapes back then. It wasn't digital. So I went through all the tapes of the war. I saw went through that war in Yugoslavia. And I realized that this is what I wanted to do. I mean, this was like the real thing. A lot of that. And people listened because it was like a top story every single day. So I had the top story every single day. And I was like a 27-year-old journalist. So even though I wasn't there reporting, the sense was that you were the center of attention. You were reporting on things that people wanted to know about because it was right at the heart of everything that was going on at that time. So it was the central theme of every news story in the world. So I was there. I was like, oh my God, I have a top story every single day. So that really helped me. And then my dad died halfway through the war, and that kind of brought me a little bit
back down to earth really quick. Oh, I'm sorry.
It's not just about it's all right. It's not just about work, but it was kind of sudden. So I was born when he was quite older than me. There was 4 of us. So that kind of made me realize, you should. Okay, you were really way up high, but you have to, you have to set your priorities as well. Don't let the profession drag you in there, and because it can carry you away into other things, and you sort of lose the balance of private life and professional life. But then again, I mean, I think that's what my dad wanted as well. Just move on. So that's what he told me anyway. And after a few months, I moved to the public state broadcaster, and they knew I was doing those kinds of stories, and that kind of worked its way into, and then right after, less than a year after that, it was 9/11.
So you got to cover that as well.
Yeah, that was top story again, and that was going through all that, and that went on for months and months.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Is this just interrupt us again
for
some certain reason?
This thing, I did not put it on silent.
It's all right.
This is bad for a journalist. Put your phone on silent. Oh, well.
Fair enough.
In any case, that story came around, and it was all top story again. And that kind of established me as an international desk journalist, which was what I wanted. I mean, I studied historical sociology. This was kind of up my street. I mean, this is what I wanted to do.
Wow.
Okay, you have to. I mean, as I said, you need to be an all-round journalist. In my view, you need to know how to work different kinds of stories, and that's what I tried to do. But this was the most exciting story, and it had the best images, the most emotive, the most evocative, the most powerful images, and that's what drew me to television as well.
Right.
And that's why I stayed. And so I had all these big stories.
I mean that leads me nicely onto my next question. Was when you were reporting, how obviously you focus on the facts, but it's the story, the human story that tends to capture people's imagination, right?
Yeah.
So then you've also got to take your opinion out of it. Yeah. So how do you go about that? Let's take the 9/11 piece, for example. I mean, okay, it was a while ago, 23 years ago.
23, 24, 23 something, yeah.
So I know that because I was pregnant with my youngest son at the time, and he's now 23. So I know that.
Okay, that was a good time for you.
But so something as emotive as that, so many personal stories, but the facts were important. Do you take the personal stories and the facts and interweave them? And how do you draw yourself away from that?
I mean, you have to be able to present the facts as well as provide an emotive piece without being too emotive. How should I put this? I mean, you take yourself out of that, but all you have to do, if you have a powerful image, you don't dress it up.
Right.
If you dress it up with words and big sort of adjectives and everything, you just make it into a sob story that has no real substance. Okay. The story was powerful in itself. So all you had to do was intertwine powerful images with your own language, keep it simple, present the facts as well, but
right.
show what happened, show with those powerful images, without going overboard with language.
Right.
I think one mistake, very basic mistake that many journalists make in Cyprus, well, many other countries too, but this is the country I know, is they're too immersed into into complicated, convoluted language, or trying to be too emotive, too sentimental. Do not be sentimental. If you have such a powerful war story, powerful terror attack, you have those images. Those images do not need dressing up.
Yeah. Okay. I see.
They're, you know what I mean? They're powerful enough in themselves.
Yeah.
You don't have to add to them. You don't add anything. You take away from them. So keep the language simple, be emotive. I mean, obviously, this was not about taking sides because it was a terror attack. And obviously, everyone was there's no one who was supporting the terrorists in their stories. This was very clear-cut thing. This is what happens with terror attacks and wars. Okay, with wars, it's a little bit more of a gray area when you talk about different kinds of areas of the world. But this was like a straight-down story with massive terror attack. It never happened before in the United States since Pearl Harbor. I mean, it was provide the facts, what you know, what the officials are saying, how Cyprus is reacting, how people are reacting on the ground. Simple enough, sound bites. I mean, this is not a technique. I mean, this is more about instinct, I think.
Okay.
This is about professional instinct. If you're experienced enough, you know that this kind of story does not need to be talked about too much. I mean, it's not about being objective, but okay, you have to say something. You have to give some numbers. You have to give some facts about where this is going, about how the president was thinking about invading Afghanistan. Okay, you have to give that. But do it through those images and show them. Just show powerful images. Okay, you have to be respectful as well. But that's enough in itself. In those kinds of stories. I mean, it depends what we're talking about.
I mean, and you think about today's, it must have changed the life of journalists dramatically. In today's world where there's 24-hour news and the stories just get drawn out so painfully, don't they? I mean, that alters a lot of what you've just said.
Every single minute, every single second. And television has changed a lot. I mean, I find myself changing as a journalist about what I present to people, what kind of story I give them. Because you have a story, it's developing through the day. People get all the push notifications on their phone. Like this happened. Like every single second, every single minute. Okay, some of it is misinformation, some of it is accurate. You have to filter through that. You have all the social media, have everyone reporting. You now have citizen reporting. All across social media, all across Twitter. People who are there, people who take pictures, but people who do not know the story, people who might be looking into other things that they think they saw or who are not quite accurate, but who are there and who have it. And, you know, people start believing these things. So what you have to do at the end of the day, I mean, we have one bulletin at 6, one bulletin, and we have our main news bulletin at 8. So by 8 o'clock, everybody knows about this, unless it's breaking. So what you have to do is provide give them facts. Facts are always important, about the main facts of the story, but do not go into too much deep because they know about that already. Give them the images. Visualize what they've read with proper pictures. I mean, you have amateur videos and TikToks and some of them are not authentic. You never know. There's so much misinformation now. And you have all these deep fake stories and you have all these false images.
So I guess it's like a release strategy, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, your experience as journalist, you can probably know whether a story is going to develop or at what time frame it's going to develop. So it is like, I guess it's the strategy of how to release this. And, you know, when you've been in that industry for a long time, you would know how to read that.
I mean, that's the idea. But it's so fast right now because a lot of other factors have come into play. It's not just about radio and television. Now it's about social media. Now it's about people reporting. It's about having fast fast, accurate stories. I think it's hard to compromise the two.
Yeah.
Social media cannot be put into a context, into like a framework. It's just so many things happening at the same time. You see some of these. I read a push that the Pope is dead. Okay, that might be misinformation.
Yeah.
That might be fake news. I mean, there's so many things that's happening.
And it's so easy and accessible, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, you must have to know yourself, and you talked about these kind of wars as opposed to the straightforward terrorist attack.
Yeah.
I mean, you must have to know yourself really well because of the personal biases that could be coming. And of course, your brain, that means that means that means that. And then so when you're coming to write a story or you observe a story, you've got to question yourself, and I'm reading this book at the moment called The Magic of Tiny Moments.
Okay.
And it's about thinking about your personal biases. When you make a decision about something, it's like, hang on, what's around this? What's the circumstances?
This is very important.
And that you have to really know who you are in order to stop yourself,
this is fundamental. This is about who you are, where you live, who's around you, what your biases are growing up, what your history is, who you are, what you're doing in the profession, and what your background is. But it's also fundamental beyond that. It's also fundamental to have a little bit of background yourself, a little bit of historical background, a little bit of political background when you're doing stories like that. For example, if you're covering the Russia-Ukraine war, you need to know a little bit about Russia, a little bit about Ukraine, a little bit about the history, World War, what happened, how these areas came about, Soviet Union. You need to have an idea of how these things developed. You need to have an idea of the conflict between NATO and Russia, of all this, how these play out in Eastern Europe, what there was back then and what there is now. If you don't know about the past, if you don't know about the history, you cannot do the story in the same way. You will just regurgitate everything that the agencies provide. And agencies also have slanted opinions. So you have to do that. You have to say, okay, the Russians say they're doing this because of this and this reason, and Ukrainians are doing this for this and this. Although you might have a very strong opinion about something, and there are still very strong opinions about many issues, particularly when you're doing a social story about many social groups, whether it's prejudice, when the church might be involved.
Gosh, and that's huge.
I mean, the story recently with cremation.
That
the first cremation facility is going to open in Cyprus. And euthanasia as well is opening up as another sort of story. And there's all this conflict between people and traditions and moving on and thinking. And maybe you have relatives with cancer, maybe you have your own experiences, but you have to take everything out.
You have to park it in a box.
You have to.
In a box to the right.
You have to. Otherwise, you have to do another job.
Right.
It's difficult to do that. I mean, you might put a little bit of something in that, but make sure it does not affect. So obviously, if you're showing images of destroyed buildings in Gaza, there's not so many things you can say. People are suffering. There's not anyone in the world who's doubting that.
Of course.
So you have to take yourself out of that.
So what is the fundamental difference between reporting and commentary?
Well, commentary is your personal opinion. It's your personal take on things. It might be an informed opinion. Based, as a journalist, as an experienced journalist, that you have background, academic background, professional background. You definitely have an input. But if it's commentary, make sure it's commentary. If it's commentary, it's not a story.
Okay.
It's your personal take. As I said, it might be quite objective, very informed and accurate, but it's still commentary. That's why you have all these editorials and commentary pieces, which sometimes I slightly disagree with, because anybody can comment. Anybody can write an editorial. They can fix it up. They can correct it. They can write in a different language. There's so many people now correcting and writing people's books. I know a lot of people who do that as a lifetime job. So if you comment on something, if you're a journalist and you comment on something, it has different weight.
Right.
Because people read and say, this guy's a journalist, he has this background.
I was going to say you would have the ability to influence people's decision by commentary, right?
You might,
if they trust you.
It's useful. Yeah, it's very useful as a tool of telling people something in a different way, without the facts, without the style of a story, as your own thinking. But always it has to be based on your own experiences and your own knowledge. If one writes a knowledgeless piece and they're not aware of the story and they're not educated about a certain issue, that doesn't have too much weight. Anybody can do that. I think that's a problem with journalism these days. I mean, anyone can write something, but it should be established as a profession.
Yeah. I mean, and I guess that's the telling sign of a successful journalist, isn't it? You know, if your pieces have weight, and they, people that read them are genuinely interested and you're generally informing, and those are the journalists who become successful, right?
And then your commentary is also successful. Although it's still commentary, it's still successful because it's based on an informed opinion and your experience, and it provides weight to it.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay, so what advice would you give to young journalists who
don't do it.
Oh, don't do it. That's the end of story.
Do
something else. Do something else. So, okay, so if a graduating student was thinking about this, what would you say?
If you're just thinking, don't do it.
Oh, really?
You have to be sure.
Yeah.
If you're considering it with other things, don't do it.
Why? What makes you say that?
Because if you do that, you have to be committed. It can't be a choice between other things.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Because it's a sort of social duty, but it's also a social sort of, how do you see it?
Not an obligation.
No, not an obligation. It's you give something.
Social service of some sort.
Of some sort.
Yeah.
Especially in the public service broadcaster as well.
Of course.
That's different. But even in the private sector as well. If you're not certain about why you want to do that, when you're going to become a journalist, that means it's not for you.
Okay.
And if you think that journalism is anchoring or presenting yourself, also do something else, because it's not about that.
Okay. So what if they are certain, like you at age 13, they are certain that that's what they want to do? What advice would you give?
Go for it, but make sure you're aware of the sacrifices. Now you are in position to know. When I was growing up, we didn't have people coming to schools, journalists, and telling us what the job is about. Okay. Now you have professionals going into schools and giving people advice about, if you want to do this, this is what is going to happen.
Yeah.
More or less.
So they get an insight into the career.
So if you're aware of the sacrifices, because there will be a lot of sacrifice, no holidays, no Christmas, no Easter, long hours of work. The salary is okay now, but it used to be a lot worse. But it's still, when you're starting out, it's still not. So
what are the rewards for you now? What reward? What do you get from this job that's tough and hard and focused and no holidays, and you give me a list of negatives? Tell me what the rewards are.
I just love it.
Yeah
If you love it, you don't need to get anything out of it. Okay, obviously I have to survive. But beyond that, I mean, you can do so many things to survive. I mean, if you get a decent salary and you are committed enough, you can go into translation, you can do interpretation, you can write your own freelance pieces, you can write for English sites. If you're bilingual, you can for English sites, you can write for Greek sites. There's so many options that add into your resume, that add into your survival kit and whatever. I mean, they give you more money basically. But if you don't love the job, the result will not be good. I mean, this is the reward. The money is not a reward. I can do any. You could have done any job, but this is about getting. It's about loving something, and it's also about getting that story out. I love the fact that I'm in a position to. It's like a major responsibility for me to be in a position to say something accurately, to present something in the right way, and that gives me so much satisfaction when people tell me, I realized something when you did that story. I now know more about that. I'm more knowledgeable about that. Those pictures were amazing. I mean, I mean, you presented that, and I now know more about that story, more about the Middle East. More, I mean, to me, that is a great source of satisfaction. It means your knowledge was put into the right use, and you presented that, and because that was my academic background as well, it also vindicates what I studied. It's like, okay, yes, this what I studied makes it sort of different. I mean, I'm not curing cancer or whatever, but providing good information now, educating people, not educating, but giving people.
It's a form of education.
It's a form
isn't
of
it?
education. Giving people the right information and provide them with a good story that has use. I think it's something that
fulfills you.
fulfilling. Yeah, I think that's the most amazing thing about journalism. But it comes in with a lot of sacrifice. If you love it, this is your reward. You're not going to be Elon Musk, but you're definitely going to be giving out something.
Yeah. So what's next for you? You're going to continue on this career path? Do you have any personal projects? I mean, we've all got a book in us, right? Do you have a book in you?
Might do. Not just now, but maybe in a few years' time, when I've gathered all my thoughts and all the memories in writing, because I keep a lot of the scripts, and I'm able to sort of digest them and read them again and project them onto different kinds of periods in my life and different kinds of thinking. Then maybe yes. For now, I'm focused on the job as well. I mean, I might be having more duties in the near future. Might be going to chief editing as well.
Oh, very nice.
That will be another challenge for me. I also keep writing and doing stories, and I think I will gradually go into more feature-ish kind of stories. I really enjoy that. That was part of my job when I went to Holland recently, and I discovered how fulfilling and amazing that is, because you have more time to develop everything. You have more time to write. You have more time to fill the visual aspect of your story, and maybe a lot of more historical stories might be coming. Had to do with the history of Cyprus and archaeology.
Oh wow!
When I went to Holland, we went to the Museum of Antiquities and saw a lot of Cypriot antiquities there, and I saw a lot of the work that archaeologists are doing in Cyprus, because Cyprus is a living archaeological site. It's amazing. It's amazing how many layers of archaeology there are in this place.
Absolutely.
So I might be doing that more in the future. To do more with the history of the island and beyond, and the region as well. I mean, the region has so much.
It's incredible.
So I might be evolving into that too. I mean, beyond the hard news reporting, I've also kind of longed for that feature story, archaeology, history, giving out, because that's also very important. I mean, that message is also, it's connected to today. And
telling those stories of the past, etc., accurately bringing them forward, right?
I mean, I realized that recently there was a crew that came in from Estonia a few months ago, and they wanted to do a story about Cyprus as part of the celebrations 20 years in the EU. They're doing all the 10 new members. So I said, and they wanted to do politicians and stuff. I said, well, why do that? It's boring. Forget about that. Why don't you do something about civilization here? 70,000-year-old civilization, so many archaeological sites, so many digs, so many excavations, so many people to talk to, so many things going on at the same time. So they did a story that we went to Paphos together, went to archaeological sites, went to Petra Duromiu, we went to Aphrodite's baths and everything. They were so amazed by, because it's endless. It's a story that's endless. They keep discovering things. I mean, they told us in the Holland, they discovered the sites of the Chalcolithic age where people were rebellious and don't do anything like others did. And it's sort of like, they told us this was the early Cypriots. They had their mind of their own. They did not do anything that the rest of the region did. And it's sort of like, he called me and I said, well, they're still doing that. So
sounds like they still are. Well, I will be looking out for that book in the future, because I think it would be fascinating.
I think when I decide about retiring, it's still a long.
I was going to say, you still got plenty of time.
There's still plenty of time. Maybe
a lot of stories still to write.
There's still a lot of stories and features to write. But it might be there, because I think you've got to leave something back as well. To leave your experiences, and they've always got to be embedded with knowledge as well. I mean, I don't like writing something just as an opinion and just as a commentary. You need to put in that knowledge that you've developed and that you had previously.
So people can take something away from
it. Yeah, and then they'll develop it further, I think. If they want to.
Amazing.
As a job. Yeah.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you today. Thank you. I was a little nervous interviewing a journalist because it's normally the other way around, right?
I've been interviewed 3 times in my life. This is the 3rd time.
Oh, right. Okay. Third time's a charm, right?
Yes,
or is it lucky? I'm not sure.
Well, actually, it was quite enjoyable. I got the chance as well to thank the school too.
Oh,
because,
lovely.
I always take the chance to thank. I never forget where I came from. And this is, I think that's my motto. I mean, you should never forget where you started from. And I think the school provided me with all that I needed to come through. And I think this is more so as well for people who might not have such confidence. And I think it gives them that confidence.
Yeah.
And this is what's always been good about the school. It's always inclusive. It's not just about those who are good. It just gives you a different kind of perspective.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in.